So if you're in the habit of keeping up with news in the anime world, then you might have heard of a little film called Your Name. I did. In fact, I heard about it so often that I couldn't stop hearing about it. With 9 consecutive weeks at #1 in the Japanese box office, this film has sent waves through the anime community. Your Name has been praised to high heavens, and I can't find a single piece of negative criticism about it. Eventually I reached a boiling point where I caved in and bought tickets to see Makoto Shinkai's latest flick. So is it the greatest animated film ever made, or is this nothing more than a hype train? Mitsuha Miyamizu wakes up in her rural Itomori home from a strange dream one day, one where she was living the life of a high school boy in Tokyo. Taki Tachibana also wakes up in Tokyo from a strange dream, one where he was living the life of a girl shackled to her family's traditions in the boonies. When these dreams become a regular occurrence, the nature of their situation becomes very clear. Establishing rules for each other, the two embrace their extraordinary circumstances as a part of their everyday lives, though this new equilibrium cannot last forever. So what I want to start out with are the things that I didn't like. First of all, the film launches you right into the story without much setup at all. It expects you to know the basic premise going in, and spends the first 30 minutes or so describing the specifics. This isn't a major issue, but say someone shows a friend or relative this movie as a surprise and doesn't explain anything to them. That person has to sit through 30 minutes of a movie being confused as hell before they suddenly realise what the deal is. And by then, it's too late for them to cast their mind back and sort this new information properly. For someone who knows the premise already, it's actually rather nice to launch right into the rest of the movie without rehashing what they know already, but I can't say it's a perfect opening to a film because of its reliance on foreknowledge. One of the specifics of the body swapping scenario is its dreamlike nature, and an implication of this for the characters. I won't say what that detail is, but it is briefly conveyed to the audience in the first act where it doesn't matter, and then becomes a major plot point in the third act when the audience has nearly forgotten it. It is utilised really well in the third act, but I just feel like it could have been at least a recurring foreground element, so when the third act does roll around, we'd remember it for its prominence. Additionally, the film really starts to push our suspension of disbelief in the third act. Some thematically fitting things happen to the characters that when you think about in a realistic context come somewhat out of nowhere. One in particular borders on the surreal. Okay, now that I have everything that I didn't like about the story out of the way, we can get into the good, and trust me, there's a lot of good here. I've never seen another Makoto Shinkai film before, but after this one I'm more than sure of his brilliance as a director. He handles the traditional theme of fate well, while masterfully weaving it uniquely through a type of story that would usually reject it. The motif of the Twilight Hour drives a path through the narrative and reaches its thematic peak in a gorgeous, emotionally evocative scene, which itself acts as an effective prelude to the finale of the film's major conflict. The final scene isn't the emotional peak of the film, which makes it come off as a little flaccid, but is still a perfect ending to the story. Fans of the body swapping subgenre will be pleased by the deep exploration of possibilities the scenario provides the two characters. Even if you're too used to the concept, the second and third acts take a new twist that is guaranteed to intrigue you. One major theme is rural versus urban livelihood, which is a tired theme in fiction by now. Thankfully, the film at least uses this theme well to describe the contrast between the two main characters. The rural town of Itomori in particular is very well established as a setting. It's a middle of nowhere town that is stuck in its forgotten traditional past. For the sake of spoilers, I can't tell you why I love the personification of Itomori so much, but let it be said that this setting is yet another example of Shinkai's directorial talent, as is the swift yet believable and compelling setup for a romantic connection between the two main characters. This is a romance film first, and those elements of the story behave traditionally in conjunction with an unconventional plot. It brings the story as a whole down to earth, as does the sparse, recurring comedy which keeps your spirits high for what can be a melancholy film at times. I'll warn right now that the characters aren't the strongest element of the story, but that for a film like this, it's not all that important. But a review is a review, and I'll have to dig into them anyway. Mitsuha is the film's heroine, a straightforward, stuck in the boonies character who wants nothing more than to escape the tired old traditions of her hometown and begin a new and exciting life in the big city. Meanwhile, Taki doesn't get anything more than even your basic light novel protagonist. He is a determined sort of guy who follows a gut instinct and will try anything to come out on top. The endearing quality of their relationship is Taki's urge to stand up for Mitsuha in her own daily life, while she pursues his relationship with co-worker Okudera in his stead. Like I said before, the lack of characterization for the main cast is excusable because of the compelling, well-paced and grand nature of the story they find themselves caught up in. The supporting cast is relatively small, comprising of Mitsuha's family, her friends, and Taki's friends. Mitsuha's dad is a more significant supporting character who is characterised by the distrust he feels towards his daughter, though this thread is rushed towards its own resolution in favour of the overall resolution of the film's major conflict. It is a prevailing weakness of the supporting cast that they just go along with Taki and Mitsuha and what they're doing for no good reason, even going so far as breaking the law and to no benefit of their own. I thought the animation was below the modern standard for anime films. Don't get me wrong, it was good, but when you compare that with Kyoto Animation's work on A Silent Voice, or half the industry's work on the Kizumonogatari films, the quality is in a whole other league. The animation quality for Your Name is akin to a high-budget TV production. That being said, none of the animation or artwork is necessarily bad. The art style is at least crisp, full of fluidity, and containing many gorgeously detailed backdrops. I was able to spot plenty of cut corners such as underdrawn faces on distant characters within the first 10 minutes, but I practically had to sit right in front of the cinema screen, so I imagine at an ideal distance. They aren't as easy to find. Overall, it isn't as impressive as its peers, A Silent Voice screening around the same time at Japanese cinemas. But the comparisons I've drawn here were animated by some of the greatest the industry has to offer, so in all fairness I can't for a single moment call the animation quality of Your Name underwhelming. When I went to see Your Name in the cinema, the only option I had was to watch it subbed. Let's start with the dubbing for the two protagonists. In a film like this, it is imperative that each actor can emulate the other's performances. Thankfully, the actors for Taki and Mitsuha do a great job. Taki's actor can be foppish and girly when he's inhabited by Mitsuha, and her actress can sound abrasive and boyish when Taki is inhabiting her. Although Taki's actor usually sounds slightly effeminate, but it's the subtle difference in his performance that counts. As for the soundtrack, I'm very sorry I don't have anything to say about it at all. The only piece of the soundtrack that did stand out to me was an end of the first act montage, and while that did really well, it did strike me as jarring since it came out of nowhere roughly 30 minutes in. Your Name is not the flawless, groundbreaking film the Japanese box office would have you think it is. Its characters are weak and the plot can be a bit demanding for your suspension of disbelief at times. That being said, it is still a truly amazing film even if you aren't into anime. Makoto Shinkai's original story and directorial talents come together to dazzle and delight the senses. You can call something a good movie on the basis that you enjoyed yourself, but I think the sign of a genuinely great film is one that doesn't leave the forefront of your mind for up to hours after you've left the cinema. And Makoto Shinkai's Your Name certainly achieved that much. Your Name has been licensed for UK home release by Anime Limited, who are looking to release the film on Blu-ray and DVD sometime in 2017. If you enjoyed Makoto Shinkai's solid direction, then you might want to check out some of his other works like 5cm per second. Your Name is the first Shinkai film I've ever seen, so I don't know how his other works compare, but of all of them this is the one I've seen appearing most prominently. Or if you're a genderbender fan in the mood for something a bit more fresh, then I'd recommend Shuzo Oshimi's manga, Inside Mari. With Oshimi's cynical take on the human condition and the horror that comes with it, Inside Mari should offer genderbender fans something they've never seen before from the subgenre. Hopefully one of these will be to your liking. If you liked this video and want to see more, then remember to subscribe or follow me on Twitter for the latest updates. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and until next time, cheerio. Thankfully the film at least uses this. Thankfully the film at least uses this. For the sake of spoilers, I can't tell you why I love this. For the sake of, but not for a film like this. It's. But even going so far as to break the law. Even going so far as to break the law. Even going so far as to break the law for no. Your Name is not the flawless groundbreaking. Your Name is not the. Your Name is not the flawless groundbreaking.